What if chasing is what's keeping it from coming? What if letting go, yes, letting go isn't weakness, but the most magnetic force you've been ignoring? And what if the very thing you've been striving for has been waiting for you to stop striving? Let's dive in, because this episode could change how you manifest everything. The paradox of chasing, why you're pushing it away. Have you ever felt like the harder you try, the further it gets? You set your goals, you visualize the outcome, you repeat your affirmations, you work relentlessly, sleepless nights, anxious days, all in the name of ambition. But the closer you think you're getting, the more it slips away like smoke through your fingers. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and it feels unfair. But here's what no one tells you. Chasing creates resistance. The energy of need, of desperation, of clinging repels the very thing you're trying to attract. Imagine trying to pull a magnet closer, but the harder you tug, the more it repels. Not because the magnet doesn't want to come, but because your force is misaligned. The pressure pushes it away. But when you release, when you stop forcing, the magnetic pull resumes. Quietly, naturally, effortlessly. Life works the same way. The universe isn't ignoring your effort, it's responding to your energy. And there's a big difference between focused action and anxious striving. The plant analogy. Growth needs trust. Let's take something simple, a plant. You plant a seed. You water it, check on it every morning, hover over it every night. You're impatient, hoping for faster growth. You adjust the sunlight constantly, worry about the temperature, change the soil again and again. But the plant, it starts to wilt. Why? Because over-managing ruins natural growth. The plant doesn't need your panic, it needs your trust. Real growth happens when you step back, when you stop checking every hour, when you believe that what you planted will grow in its own time. When you surrender, you don't give up, you get out of the way. That's the power of aligned surrender. When you stop forcing, the flow begins. While you're busy pushing, life is inviting you to receive. You have two options. Keep chasing and feel like you're running uphill against the wind, or step into trust and feel everything begin to align with ease, clarity, and purpose. Because guess what? What's meant for you will never require force. Yes, action is necessary. Yes, discipline matters, but they must be aligned, not anxious. The moment you stop obsessing, the current starts flowing in your direction. Suddenly, the right people show up, the right ideas, the right opportunities, not because you forced them, but because your energy finally matched them. How to manifest without chasing Gombasro. So, how do you manifest your desires without clinging to them? How do you move with purpose but without pressure? How do you want something deeply but without becoming attached to the outcome? That's what this series is about, and it starts with the most essential principle. 1. Detach from the outcome. Let's be honest, this is easier said than done. We've been conditioned to believe that success means control, that if we just work hard enough, think positively enough, and visualize vividly enough, we'll get exactly what we want when we want it. But life doesn't operate on demand, and Stoic wisdom cuts right through that illusion. The more attached you are to an outcome, the more resistance you create. When your happiness is tied to whether something happens or not, you've already lost your peace. Let's say you're trying to land a dream job. You've done the interview, you sent the follow-up, but now your mind is spinning with a dozen scenarios. Did I say too much? Should I have answered that differently? Why haven't they called? Or maybe you're waiting for a text back from someone you care about, and every minute feels like a silent rejection. This is where the damage begins, not in the event, but in your attachment to it. Attachment breeds anxiety, and anxiety hijacks your clarity. But detachment? Detachment is not apathy, it's empowerment. Real power comes from the present. When you detach from results, you reclaim your power from the unknown and bring it back to the now. Because the truth is, you never had control over the outcome anyway. What you do control? Your effort, your attitude, your actions. You control how grounded you stay. You control whether you spiral or center yourself. You control whether you react or respond. And that changes everything. When you stop obsessing over results, you begin to move with grace and calm. You're not rushed. You're not desperate. You're simply present, and presence is where attraction lives. Epictetus and the art of trusting life. Let's anchor this in one of the most profound pieces of Stoic wisdom. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happens the way it does, and you will be content. Epictetus. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you align. You stop resisting what is and start trusting that what's unfolding is part of a bigger design. Even delays, even detours, even silence. When you detach from how things should look, you become open to how beautifully they can actually unfold. Final thoughts before we continue. So here's the truth, raw and unfiltered. The moment you stop obsessing over the outcome is the moment you start attracting it. Not because you're doing less, but because you're doing it from a place of clarity, peace, and grounded belief. That's the power of detachment. That's where manifestation begins, not with force, but with flow. In the next section, we're going to explore exactly how to take aligned action without falling into the trap of control or fear. But before we move on, take a breath. Let these words settle. You don't have to chase what's already seeking you, picking up from before. So we ended the last section with a powerful realization. When you release control, when you detach from the outcome, you unlock a natural rhythm that brings peace and progress together. But that kind of trust, it isn't easy. It requires a deep shift not just in behavior, but in belief. True happiness begins with acceptance. Pause for a second. Let this sink in. Happiness doesn't come from getting everything you want. It comes from accepting life as it is. Now read that again, but slower this time. We often confuse happiness with achievement. We believe that joy is something to be earned, unlocked, or won once we finally get the relationship, the job, the recognition. But what if happiness isn't at the finish line? What if it's waiting for you right now, hidden in the acceptance of the moment? When you stop demanding that life unfold in a specific way and on a specific timeline, you make space for peace. You stop wrestling with reality. And in that surrender, you actually gain more control over how you feel. That's the secret. When you let go of needing things to happen, you start allowing things to happen. Because everything, yes, everything, is unfolding according to a greater rhythm, a bigger plan, one that's often invisible while it's happening, but undeniable once it's revealed. Lily's story, letting go to move forward. Let me share a real story. I think you'll see yourself in it. A friend of mine, let's call her Lily, was laser focused on hitting a huge milestone in her career. She had her goal written on sticky notes, on her mirror, on her vision board. She lived and breathed this goal. Every single day, she worked harder than anyone I knew. Early mornings, late nights, no breaks. She gave it everything, but nothing was happening. Progress was slow. Rejections piled up. Opportunities seemed to pass her by. And the more she obsessed over why isn't it happening, the more frustrated and emotionally drained she became. She started questioning her worth. Until one day, her mentor said something simple, but life-altering. Lily, focus on doing your best every day and detach from the outcome. Trust that it will happen when it's meant to. At first, she resisted that advice. It felt like giving up, like loosening her grip meant letting go of her dream. But eventually, exhaustion forced her to try it. She stopped checking her metrics every hour. She stopped rewriting her plans every week. Instead, she began showing up with calm intention, doing great work, and letting the rest unfold. And guess what? That's when things started shifting. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. New connections appeared, opportunities aligned. The door she had been knocking on finally opened, and not because she pushed harder, but because she aligned deeper. So, how do you detach from the outcome? Let's break it down clearly. There are 3 practical steps you can take right now. 1. Focus on your actions. Pour your energy into the process, not the prize. Put your best effort into what you can do today. Trust that your consistency will compound even when the results are invisible at first. 2. Let go of perfection. Don't wait for things to unfold in the exact way you imagined. Life will surprise you. And often, it delivers something better than what you were chasing, if you're open to it. 3. Stay grounded in the present. Don't live in the what-ifs of tomorrow. Don't spiral into future worries. Return to now, your breath, your task, your mindset. because this moment is where your power lives. When you live this way, when you truly detach, you begin to experience a beautiful shift. You're no longer ruled by what hasn't happened yet. You become fulfilled by how you're showing up. That's where freedom lives. Now let's talk about your mindset. All of this, surrender, detachment, alignment, leads us to a deeper truth. Your thoughts shape your experience. Every single day, we are bombarded with distractions, notifications, noise, other people's expectations, social comparison, doubts, deadlines. And in that chaos, it's easy to forget the only thing you truly control is your mindset. This is where your real power lives. Note for two, master your mindset. When you master your mindset, you master your life. Your external world may be unpredictable, but your internal world, that's your sanctuary. That's your compass. That's your source of stability, no matter what storms surround you. Think of it this way. A scattered, reactive mind creates chaos, even when nothing's actually wrong. But a calm, focused mind finds clarity, even in the middle of a storm. A centered mind doesn't mean you ignore problems. It means you face them from a place of power. How mindset impacts reality. Let's be clear. Mastering your mind isn't just a nice idea. It's practical. It's powerful, and it changes everything. When your thoughts are rooted in clarity, you become more creative. You notice opportunities others overlook. You stay grounded when others panic. You respond rather than react. That's not luck. That's mental mastery. And that's exactly what Stoic philosophy teaches us. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoics, once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Think about that. Not the size of your bank account, not how many followers you have, not whether your plan works out, but the quality of your thoughts. Why? Because your thoughts shape your perception, and your perception shapes your experience. Where your focus goes, energy flows. If your mind is filled with fear, negativity, or worst-case scenarios, then even good things will feel threatening. But if your thoughts are calm, confident, and grounded, you can face even tough moments with courage. This doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means trusting that you can handle it, even when it's not. Your mindset is the filter through which life passes. Clean the filter, and everything becomes clearer. Final reflection. Before moving on. So here's the gentle challenge for today. Don't just observe your thoughts. Own them. Don't wait for the world to give you peace. Build it within yourself. Because the journey toward detachment and manifestation begins in the mind. And when your mindset is in alignment, your external world starts catching up. Clarity in the mind leads to peace in life. In the last section, we discovered that mastering your mindset isn't just helpful, it's foundational. When your inner world becomes calm, focused, and rooted in the present, your outer world begins to reflect that same energy. You stop reacting from stress and start responding with clarity. Let's go even deeper. Rachel's story, from constant pressure to mental peace. I want to introduce you to someone I deeply respect. Let's call her Rachel. For most of her adult life, Rachel was stuck in a cycle so many of us know too well. She was constantly overwhelmed. Her days were packed, her schedule always full, and her mind never stopped racing. She woke up anxious, already worried about what might go wrong. She was juggling deadlines, clients, emails, expectations. But the biggest battle wasn't her to-do list. It was in her head. She was always a few steps ahead of the present moment, caught in a storm of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Until one day, something shifted. Rachel reached a breaking point, not the kind where everything explodes, but the quieter kind. The one where your soul just whispers, you can't keep living like this. That day, she made a decision. Not to change everything overnight, but to change how she related to her thoughts. Instead of letting stress dictate her pace, she decided to slow down and get intentional. She started small, 10 minutes of silence each morning, a deep breath before each meeting, a simple question whenever her mind spiraled, is this thought helping me or hurting me? And gradually she began reclaiming control, not of her circumstances, but of her response to them. Over time, something incredible happened. Her anxiety faded, not because her life got easier, but because her mind got stronger. Where she once saw problems, she started seeing possibilities. Where she once felt trapped, she started feeling empowered. And the opportunities that once seemed out of reach, they started coming to her naturally. So, how do you master your mindset? Let's break this down into 3 clear, practical steps. 1. Become aware of your thoughts. Most people don't even realize the script playing in their head all day. Pay attention. What are you feeding your mind? Are your thoughts lifting you up or slowly wearing you down? 2. Reframe your thinking. Words matter. Instead of saying, "This is too hard," try, "This is a challenge I will grow through." That one shift in language changes how your brain processes the situation, from fear to power. 3. Stay grounded in the present. The future is unknown, and the past is unchangeable. The only place your influence holds weight is now. When you stay present, the future becomes less intimidating, and your actions become more effective. These aren't just mental hacks, they're mindset disciplines. And over time, they rewire your inner world so your outer world becomes more aligned, more peaceful, more productive. A calm mind is a magnetic force. At the end of the day, your mind is your greatest asset. Not your money, not your resume, not even your connections. Because the person with a calm, steady, and focused mindset will always outperform the person who is reactive, overwhelmed, or mentally scattered. So master your mind and your life will follow. And if you're wondering whether this really works, just remember this. Your reality is shaped by the quality of your thoughts. Choose them wisely. 3. Trust in divine timing. Now let's transition into one of the most profound principles, not just in Stoicism, but in life itself. Trust in divine timing. We live in a culture of instant everything. Instant updates, instant validation, instant success stories. And that makes patience feel like weakness, but it's not. Patience is a superpower because rushing things rarely leads to results worth having. When we rush, we skip steps. We overlook red flags. We bypass lessons that were meant to shape us. It's in the stillness, in the waiting, in the sacred pause, where the most profound growth happens. The danger of rushing. When you want something badly, whether it's a goal, a relationship, or a breakthrough, it's tempting to force it, to hustle harder, to overthink, to overdo. But here's the truth. Anything worth having takes time. Think of nature. You can't rush a seed into bloom. If you dig it up every day to check its progress, you damage the very thing you're trying to nurture. Growth is quiet. Development is slow. But it's in that slow, quiet space that roots deepen and real strength is built. The wisdom of stillness. When you allow life to unfold without resistance, something beautiful happens. You stop feeling behind. You stop comparing timelines. You start trusting that what's yours is on the way, and it will arrive right on time. This is where Stoic wisdom meets spiritual truth. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." Let that settle. Nothing truly valuable, whether it's a legacy, a deep relationship, or inner peace, is built overnight. It's built slowly, intentionally, with patience, persistence, and purpose. So what does trust look like in real life? It looks like this. You keep showing up. You keep doing the work. You keep growing quietly, even when no one's watching. And you release the timeline. You stop trying to control every variable. You stop demanding results on your schedule, because you know that what's meant for you won't pass you by. Final reflection for this chapter. Trust isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the quiet confidence that even if things aren't happening yet, they are still happening. Beneath the surface, behind the scenes, within your spirit, keep watering your seed. Keep tending your roots. And trust that when the time is right, the bloom will come. Let go, and the right timing will find you. Previously, we talked about the quiet strength in trusting divine timing, the idea that what's meant for you will never require frantic chasing. And now, let's bring that wisdom into real life through a story that shows how powerful surrender can be. Sophie's story. From force to flow. Let me introduce you to Sophie. She was a brilliant, driven woman, ambitious, focused, and relentless in her pursuit of success. She had big goals, and she was willing to outwork anyone to reach them. Long hours, no days off, constant strategy meetings, and self-imposed deadlines. On paper, she looked like a future CEO in the making. But behind the scenes, Sophie was burning out. The more she pushed, the more resistance she faced. Doors that once looked open slammed shut. Every opportunity felt like a dead end. And the harder she tried to force her plans into reality, the more life seemed to push back. Frustrated and exhausted, she reached a breaking point, not because she gave up, but because she realized she was approaching everything from the wrong energy. So she decided to shift. Instead of obsessing over when she would succeed, she began focusing on who she was becoming. She redirected her energy inward, improving her skills, deepening her self-awareness, expanding her network, and trusting that when the timing was right, things would align. And slowly but surely, they did. Without the pressure, without the chase, without the stress, opportunities that once seemed so out of reach began to appear effortlessly. Connections formed, collaborations emerged. Sophie realized that when she let go of the need to control the outcome, she made space for life to deliver what was already meant for her. So, how do you trust divine timing? Here are 3 powerful mindset shifts to help you start trusting the timing of your life. 1. Let go of control. You can't force a flower to bloom before its time. In the same way, forcing your life to move on your schedule can actually delay your growth. Release the need to micromanage every step. Trust that what's meant for you will show up and stay when the foundation is strong enough to hold it. 2. Focus on growth, not the outcome. The most powerful investments are the ones you make in yourself. Keep learning. Keep developing. The right doors will open when you've grown into the person who's ready to walk through them. 3. Be patient. Patience isn't about waiting. It's about trusting without anxiety. When you stay present and grounded, you allow life to unfold in a way that supports your highest potential. At the end of the day, trusting divine timing isn't passive. It's one of the most active forms of faith. It's believing that your life is not behind. It's knowing that every delay is divine preparation. It's understanding that what's yours won't be missed. It's simply maturing in the unseen. 4. Act with purpose, not desperation. Let's now explore a principle that can radically shift your energy and results. Are you acting from grounded purpose or from anxious desperation? The difference between the two is everything. We've all been there, feeling like time is running out, that success is slipping away, that everyone else is moving ahead while we're stuck. In those moments, the urge to act out of fear becomes overwhelming. You hustle harder, not because you're aligned, but because you're afraid. You reach out, not because it's the right move, but because you can't bear the silence. You post, you email, you message, you tweak, not from clarity, but from panic. But here's the truth. Desperation repels what you want. It creates tension both internally and externally. It clouds your judgment, makes you reactive, and communicates a kind of needy energy that people and opportunities can feel. Have you ever met someone who was clearly trying too hard? It's uncomfortable. Their energy feels rushed, uncertain, a little bit off. That's what desperation does, and people sense it, even if you don't say a word. Purpose, on the other hand, is magnetic. Purpose feels calm. Purpose feels clear. Purpose doesn't rush because it knows where it's going. When you act with purpose, your movements are aligned. Your steps may be small, but they're strategic. You're not trying to impress or prove. You're simply walking in direction of your truth. This energy is powerful because when you act from a place of clarity and confidence, you naturally attract better outcomes. You stop begging for opportunities and start creating them. You stop chasing people and start drawing the right ones in. Success in this state doesn't feel forced, it feels flowed. So how do you shift from desperation to purpose? Let's make this practical. 1. Pause before you act. Ask yourself, am I doing this from fear or from alignment? If the answer is fear, wait, regroup, reground. 2. Reconnect with your why. When you remember why you started, your real reason, your deeper vision, you realign your steps with intention. 3. Move steadily, not frantically. Purpose doesn't mean perfection. It means consistent, calm progress. One aligned step at a time. Final thought of the next step. At its core, success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most from the right state of mind. So slow down, breathe, refocus. Don't let fear dictate your action. Let clarity guide it, Because when you act with purpose, not panic, you become unstoppable. From desperation to direction, the power of purposeful action. In the last section, we explored how acting out of desperation repels the very things you're trying to attract. But when you move with clarity, intention, and calm focus, you naturally draw success towards you. And this shift begins with one simple but powerful question: who do I want to become? Stoic wisdom. Start with who, then do. This is where ancient Stoic wisdom lights the way. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." It's a simple sentence, but it holds a universe of power. Instead of asking, "What do I need to do?" start by asking, "Who do I want to be?" That subtle shift changes everything. When your actions come from your core identity, your values, your vision, your purpose, then your movement becomes rooted, intentional, and powerful. You stop scrambling, you start aligning. Because when you're clear on your why, your how becomes more focused, and clarity breeds confidence. Jack's story. Jack's story. From chasing to attracting. Let me share the story of Jack. He was ambitious, hungry for success, determined to make something of himself. But no matter how many applications he sent, how many late nights he pulled, or how many doors he knocked on, the results just weren't showing up. Frustration set in. He started questioning everything: his work, his timing, his worth. Until one evening, after a particularly discouraging rejection, he had a moment of clarity. He realized something he hadn't seen before. He was moving from desperation, not from direction. He was chasing opportunities without checking whether they aligned with who he wanted to become. His actions were loud, but they weren't rooted in purpose. So Jack made a choice. He took a pause. He went inward. He wrote down his values, what truly mattered to him, both personally and professionally. He asked himself what kind of man he wanted to be, not just what kind of success he wanted to achieve. He set clear goals that matched his values. He stopped applying to everything and started being intentional. Instead of reaching for any opportunity, he started preparing for the right ones. And slowly, everything began to shift. Emails came in. Meetings got booked. The right people began to notice. The doors that once slammed shut started quietly opening. Not because Jack chased them, but because he became the version of himself those doors were meant for. How to act with purpose instead of desperation. Here are 3 practical steps to help you shift from frantic motion to focused movement. 1. Get clear on who you want to be. Before you make your next move, take a step back. Define your values. Clarify your long-term vision. Ask yourself, will this action bring me closer to the person I'm becoming? 2. Trust the process. Don't expect overnight results. Purposeful action isn't about speed, it's about direction. Move steadily, knowing that each thoughtful step builds momentum. 3. Move with quiet confidence. You don't need to announce every intention or prove your worth at every turn. Purpose speaks louder than noise. Trust that your energy will do the talking, even when your mouth is silent. Purpose attracts. Desperation repels. Let's be honest, people can feel the difference. When you walk into a room grounded in purpose, people lean in. When you show up with desperate energy, people pull away. The energy you carry introduces you before you say a word. So walk in purpose. Speak in purpose. Act in purpose. Not because you're trying to get something, but because you're becoming someone. And from that space, everything you need begins to find you. Core final thought on purpose before we move on. At the end of the day, purposeful action isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things with the right energy at the right time. When you align your actions with your deepest values, you move with quiet power. You're no longer forcing life, you're flowing with it. And that's when everything begins to fall into place. So ask yourself, are your actions aligned with the person you're becoming, or are you still trying to prove something you no longer need to chase? If you've made it this far in the video, I want to say thank you. Your presence, your time, and your support matter more than you know. If this message spoke to you, leave a thank God in the comments and give this video a like. It really helps. Now, let's move into something deeply freeing. 5. Core 5. Let go of control. We live in a world that rewards control. Control your career. Control your relationships. control your results. But what if the most powerful thing you could do is let go? Because in trying to control everything, you often end up controlling nothing. You can't control everything, but you can control you. In the previous section, we explored the quiet strength that comes from letting go of control, how true purpose flows not from force but from alignment. Now, let's take that principle one step further, how releasing the need to control everything leads to something even greater: freedom. Stop wasting energy where it doesn't belong. How much of your energy is spent trying to control things beyond your reach? You plan meticulously. You anticipate every possible outcome. You prepare responses to scenarios that haven't even happened and maybe never will. But all of that energy, it's being drained in the wrong direction. The truth is, trying to control the uncontrollable keeps you stuck. It doesn't bring peace. It doesn't bring progress. It only brings pressure. But when you stop spinning your wheels, when you pause and center yourself, when you ask what's actually mine to manage, everything begins to shift. You start responding instead of reacting. You move from fear into focus, from chaos into clarity. The wisdom of Epictetus: freedom begins within. Here's where Stoic philosophy gives us its clearest and most liberating insight. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Let that sit with you for a moment. Real freedom doesn't come from manipulating your circumstances or perfectly planning every detail of your future. It comes from letting go of the illusion that you can control those things. Freedom isn't found in controlling the world. It's found in releasing the need to. When you stop obsessing over outcomes, when you stop worrying about how others will act, what they will think, or what will happen next, you create space. And in that space, life breathes again. Anna's story: letting go and gaining peace. Let me introduce you to Anna. Anna was a brilliant woman, deeply kind and incredibly driven. But her mind was a battlefield. She constantly worried about how others perceived her. She feared the unknown in her career. She obsessed over every what if, and the more she worried, the more stuck she became. No amount of planning could quiet her mind. The tighter she tried to grip the future, the more unstable everything felt. Then one day, exhausted by her own mental storm, she made a decision. Instead of trying to predict or control the future, she would begin by mastering herself. Each day she focused on three things: being present in the moment, responding calmly to what came her way, letting go of the need to micromanage the uncontrollable. It wasn't easy at first. Old habits tugged at her. Fear whispered constantly. But she stayed committed. And something beautiful happened: peace. Peace not because her life suddenly got easier, but because her relationship to life changed. As she focused on what she could control, her mindset, her habits, her attitude, she began to feel lighter, clearer, more confident, and almost like magic, the opportunities she once chased began coming to her, not by force, but by flow. So how do you let go of control? Here are 3 steps to help you start practicing this mindset right now. 1. Focus on what you can control: your thoughts, your choices, your reactions, your energy. These are your power zones. This is where your influence matters most. 2. Release the need for everything to go according to plan. Life is unpredictable by nature. Sometimes what looks like a detour is actually divine direction. Trust that not everything will go your way, and that's not only okay, it's necessary. 3. Embrace the unknown. The unknown isn't your enemy. It's the birthplace of growth, discovery, and transformation. When you surrender to it, you stop resisting and start evolving. Freedom comes from within. Let's be honest, letting go of control isn't easy, but it is freeing. When you stop trying to manage everything outside of you, you finally have space to master what's inside you. And that's where your greatest power lives. You can't control the weather. You can't control other people. You can't control every twist and turn of your journey. But you can always control how you walk through the storm, with grace, with strength, with trust. Final reflection. Final reflection. Before we shift focus, at the end of the day, peace doesn't come from certainty. It comes from surrender. And the more you let go, the more space you create for the right things to come to you. Let go of control. Take responsibility for your mind, your energy, your actions, and watch how light life begins to feel again. 6. Embody the energy of abundance. Now let's explore one of the most transformational inner shifts you can make, the energy of abundance. Because when you stop trying to get more and start living like you already have enough, everything changes. Abundance begins with what you already hold. In the previous section, we talked about the freedom that comes from letting go of control. And when you finally release that grip, what takes its place is something even more powerful: abundance. Not just the abundance of things, but of mindset, gratitude, and grounded peace. Let's take a closer look at what it really means to embody the energy of abundance. What real wealth feels like. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, said something timeless. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Take a moment to truly let that sink in. Because in a world that constantly tells you more is better, more success, more followers, more income, more everything, this one quote flips the script entirely. True wealth isn't measured by how much you've collected. It's measured by how little you need to feel full. When you begin to understand that abundance doesn't come from accumulation, but from appreciation, you unlock something rare: a calm, steady satisfaction, a sense that you're already enough, that you already have enough, that your life is already rich, even as it's still growing. This isn't about settling, it's about seeing. James's story. From chasing to receiving. Let me tell you about someone I once worked with, James. James was the kind of guy everyone assumed would make it. Smart, ambitious, constantly on the move. But deep down, he was always chasing. He believed that once he reached a certain salary, bought the perfect house, or hit a certain level of recognition, then he'd finally feel complete. But every time he hit a goal, the finish line moved. And with every step forward, fulfillment seemed to drift further away. One day, in the middle of burnout, James stopped. Not his work, not his effort, but the chase. He made a quiet, personal decision to live as if he already had what he needed. He started small, taking 5 minutes a day to reflect on what was already present in his life: his health, his friends, his ability to learn, his breath. And something began to shift, not externally at first, but inside. He started showing up with more confidence, more clarity, less neediness, less anxiety. And as his energy shifted, so did his reality. Opportunities began to appear again, but this time he wasn't chasing them. They came to him. He wasn't hustling out of lack. He was moving with abundance. And the universe, as it often does, mirrored that energy right back to him. How do you embody the energy of abundance? Here are 3 practical steps you can start today. 1. Practice gratitude daily. Take inventory, not of what's missing, but of what's already in your hands. Make gratitude a habit, not a holiday, because a grateful heart is an abundant one. 2. Let go of attachment to outcomes. It's okay to have goals, but don't worship them. Don't make your joy dependent on things arriving on your schedule. Trust that what's truly meant for you is already finding its way, and you don't need to beg for it. 3. Shift into the mindset of already having. Start showing up as if the life you want is already forming around you. When you walk, speak, and act with that kind of belief, your reality starts rising to meet it. Abundance is a frequency, not a number. Let's be clear, abundance isn't about the size of your paycheck, your house, or your closet. It's about your state of being. When you stop saying "I'll be happy when" and start saying "I'm grateful now," your life takes on a richness that no money could ever replicate. Abundance is internal, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's energetic. And once you embody that, everything changes. Not because you're forcing it, but because your inner state has aligned with the life you desire. Final reflection before moving forward. So here's the gentle challenge. Can you start living from abundance before life gives you the reason? Can you act like you already have enough, even as you grow toward more? Because when you shift from scarcity to abundance, you stop chasing, you start attracting, you stop waiting, you start receiving. And that's where transformation begins. Rule 7. Take aligned action, then let go. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful ways to move forward in life: taking aligned action and then letting go. Because so often we confuse effort with control. We try to do more, fix more, push more, hoping that if we just try harder, the result will come faster. But the truth? Sometimes the work isn't in the doing, it's in the releasing. Let it flow, not force. The power of letting go after action. Previously, we talked about living with the energy of abundance, how embodying the belief that you already have enough shifts your energy and attracts more of what you desire. But here's what comes next in the journey: taking action aligned with that abundance and then letting go. Because action without surrender becomes pressure, and pressure over time becomes resistance. You're already on the right path. Just keep going. When your actions are aligned with your values and purpose, you're already on the right path. But what often disrupts the flow? Impatience. You've probably felt it. The tension that builds when you've been doing the work, but the results still haven't shown up. You start questioning your steps. You wonder if you're doing something wrong. You consider scrapping everything and starting over. But here's the truth. Results have their own rhythm, and they rarely arrive on your schedule. That doesn't mean they aren't coming. It just means they're coming in the time and in the form you may not have expected. So what do you do in the meantime? You stay consistent. You stay grounded. You trust that the seeds you're planting now will bloom when the season is right. Stoic wisdom. Patience over pressure. This is where Stoic philosophy once again shows its quiet brilliance. Seneca once said, "Effort and patience will achieve more than force and anxiety." Read that again, slowly, because it contains one of the most overlooked truths in modern life. You've been taught to hustle, to grind, to go harder when things don't work. But that mindset often leads to burnout, not breakthroughs. The Stoics understood something deeper. Sustainable success isn't born from stress. It's born from steady, intentional effort without the mental chaos. Effort with anxiety leads to exhaustion. Effort with patience leads to progress. Grace's story. The shift from force to flow. Let me share a story about Grace, a client I worked with not long ago. Grace had a dream to grow her own coaching business. She had the skills, the passion, the vision, but what she didn't have was peace. She worked long hours, jumped at every possible opportunity, said yes to everything, and constantly compared herself to others in her industry. She lived in a state of urgency, always in motion, always stressed, and no matter how much she did, nothing seemed to work. She wasn't attracting clients, she wasn't making progress, and she was close to giving up. Until one day, during a mentoring session, someone told her something simple, but life-changing. Take the aligned action you know is right, and then let go. The result is not your job. Your job is to stay in alignment. That message hit her hard. She realized that she had been trying to control success instead of creating space for it. So Grace made a shift. She started focusing on what she could control: her message, her energy, her content. She stopped obsessing over how many people clicked, liked, or followed. She kept showing up, but this time from peace, not panic. And then, without warning, the shift began. Clients started finding her. Collaborations appeared. Growth became effortless. She realized the key wasn't in doing more, it was in doing what mattered and then letting the rest unfold. How to take aligned action and let go. Let's simplify this with 3 powerful steps. 1. Focus on what you can control. Take daily actions that are rooted in your values. Stay consistent in your process. Measure your success by alignment, not just by outcome. 2. Practice patience. Results take time. The universe isn't ignoring you, it's preparing you. Trust that the right things are aligning in the background, even if you can't see them yet. 3. Release the need to control the outcome. You can't force timing. You can't rush alignment. You can only keep showing up, calmly, consistently, with trust. Force creates resistance. Trust creates flow. When you constantly push, stress, and overanalyze, you clog the very channels through which success wants to arrive. But when you act with intention and release attachment, you open space for miracles. You shift your energy from "I hope this works" to "I trust this will." And that shift, that's when everything begins to move. You'll find yourself attracting the right people, the right ideas, and the right timing. Not because you begged for them, but because you became the version of yourself that naturally receives them. Final reflection to close this chapter. At the end of the day, this journey isn't about effort versus rest. It's about effort with peace. Take aligned action, then let go, because the things meant for you don't need to be forced into your life. They flow into your life when your energy and your trust are aligned. So stop chasing, start aligning, and let the rest arrive in its own time.